Oh, that's clearly a paintbrush. Come on. Welcome to Verbal to Visual. My name is Doug Neill, and today I would like to share with you what is now my new favorite resource to help folks overcome their fear of drawing and build up their own visual vocabulary to support their sketchnoting efforts. If you're new here, sketchnoting is a form of visual note-taking that brings more visual processing powers to the way you work with ideas. It's about adding quick sketches alongside short phrases to help you better remember or share the ideas that you're learning or presenting. And one of the common fears that comes along with developing this skill is the fear of drawing. And the resource that I'm going to share today will help you address that fear in a low pressure and maybe even fun way. It's an experiment that Google created, and it's called Quickdraw. I will be demonstrating it on my iPad here. So basically, people around the world contributed these drawings of single objects. As you'll see, they only had 20 seconds to do it. And if you tap on any of those, you can see all of these examples. And when you look at any individual one, it will actually show you the way in which that particular object was drawn, the specific series of strokes to make it. And it's that capture that makes it very useful as someone who's just learning how to take visual notes. And you can select from this pretty large list of drawn objects and animals, different additions that you might like to make to your visual vocabulary that you can get comfortable drawing so that you can use them easily within your next sketchnoting session. So that's a brief overview of what Quickdraw is. I now would like to share two suggestions for how you might use this tool to develop your visual vocabulary and just become more comfortable drawing so that you can weave that particular skill into your note-taking process. The first way you might use this tool is to simply select one thing from this list at a time. Let's go with crayon. Find some version of crayon that you feel like fits and you want to learn how to draw. I'm going to go with that one. And then once you've selected that, it's going to keep that going on a loop there. And with whatever tool you typically use to take visual notes, I'm going to stick with pen and paper and use index cards here. Simply practice drawing that object in the way that you see it being drawn until you're comfortable with it. Or you could even alter it a little bit if you feel like changing the stroke. So I'm going to complete that rectangle first and then do the rest of it. There you go. There's a crayon. And I think the more times you draw the object, you can adjust how you draw it. So for these, since that first one, I haven't really even been watching this drawing over here. I just want to get comfortable with these strokes. And I would say drawing it 4 or 5 times is probably enough for it to stick pretty well so that tomorrow or a few days from now or a week from now, you'll remember the general way in which you drew out this type of object. So in that way, you can use the way in which it's drawn here as a starting point, as a reference, but you can also draw it in your own way once you get comfortable with it. So let's pick another one here to practice. Let's try dresser. Notice there are plenty of options for you to choose from. I think I like this style generally, but even from the beginning here, I'm going to make my own alterations to it. I feel like I want a dresser to have 3 drawers and not just 2. So I'm even going to simplify it even more and make it a bit taller. One more time for good measure. Let's pick one more to practice in this way. This could be a good warm-up prior to jumping into a podcast or a talk that you're going to sketchnote. Pick 2 or 3 images that you haven't really drawn before or that you're not comfortable with. Let's try a golf club and draw those 2 or 3 images out. I like the ones that have a little bit of distinction between the club handle and the rest of the club. but I also like the ones that have the golf ball right next to it. So I even find myself wanting to make additions here as I practice drawing. And it's important to note that in these drawings, there's a constraint of you only have 20 seconds to draw them. So that contributes to the simplicity of these drawings. Let's try to draw a putter. So again, I find at least that once I have a starting point like this, not only is that a helpful reference for drawing that particular thing, but then kind of naturally I want to start making some alterations to it. And that can be helpful because it might be these types of alterations that will make the visuals that you're drawing that much more useful and tied to the particular ideas that you're capturing in a sketchnoting session, when you can make them slightly more relevant to the idea. So that's skill building activity number 1, where you kind of get to take your time looking through the list of drawn elements, pick any particular object that you'd like to learn how to draw, watch it loop as many times as you want, draw it in that particular way or in your own way. The second way that you can use this tool to work on your simple drawing skills is by playing the game, limiting yourself to the same constraints that whoever in the United States drew that golf club. I'm not sure why it thinks these are butterflies. I'm going to assume that's a random bug. So let's do it. Let's play the game. So for this part, here's how this works. It tells you what you're going to have to draw, but you only will have 20 seconds to draw it. And what I like about this setup is you can choose how long you want to think about and kind of visualize the object before you start drawing it. And you can play around a little bit with, giving yourself a few seconds at least to imagine what you will draw before you draw it. Other times where maybe you don't give yourself any time, you just have to go and start drawing. I think I have an idea here, so I'm going to try it. Tricky part is showing water. There you go. And as you might have seen, you saw the AI engine trying to figure out what you were drawing as you were drawing it, and that's where this helpful feedback loop comes into play. The goal here is to draw something, next up it will be a church, in a way that Google's artificial intelligence system here recognizes it as a church. But because of the fact that that machine learning resulted from previous folks who only had 20 seconds to draw a church, it sets the bar pretty low, which is helpful for visual note-taking because it keeps you from getting too artistic with your drawings. You have to draw them simply and quickly. And the way in which this tool helps you to practice that's going to pay lots of dividends the next time you go to capture a lecture or a talk or a podcast, and you don't want to have to constantly be stopping to think about what you're going to draw next or how you're going to draw it. Well, let's try drawing a church. There you go. Now an ant. And a fish. And a map. No, too many weird marks. Oh well, I think I'm going to fail on that one. Paintbrush. This I have drawn, but I don't know if it'll recognize it. No. Oh, that's clearly a paintbrush. Come on. How do I make it more paintbrushy? So that's pretty interesting. So as you can see, you draw 6 at a time, and it then gives you a recap. It shows you which ones Google's program was able to identify correctly, and then which ones that didn't quite work out. So for me, it's clearly map and paintbrush. So let's dig into those two a little bit. It thought it was maybe a microwave or a picture frame or a book. So what I could have done, what would have been more recognizable to Google's system, instead of doing a kind of threefold fold out map there, keeping it one rectangle, still having the X there, but maybe making some better path lines. And what you could do, either right within the app here or with whatever you were practicing before, you could be like, okay, let me practice the way Google wanted me to draw it. Throw some mountains in there. A winding path. Maybe something like a lake. I bet that if I drew that next time, this system would recognize it as a map. How about paintbrush? I'm curious what other paintbrushes look like. Okay, got pretty close with the closest match being a marker. Yeah, I can see how this is these ones are a little bit more easily identifiable as paintbrushes. It's pretty close. And I tend to think of somewhat more artistic paintbrushes as opposed to house paintbrushes. But I feel like something like this one, is a good element for me to add to my visual vocabulary. And my sense is that the total number of things that you could draw, that's small enough that eventually you'll start to see the same objects or animals come up again so that you can practice them again. See if you remember how you drew them last time, and maybe if the system didn't recognize them then, maybe this time they will. So there's that reinforcement of a particular set of drawn elements that will build over time. So if you would like some practice developing your simple drawing skills, growing your visual vocabulary, then give this tool a try. I also think this could be a really helpful resource for teachers who are sharing sketchnoting with their students as a way to lower some of their fears about drawing. That's actually why this came up right now in connection to some webinars that I've been having with teachers in connection with a resource kit that I built for educators who want to share this skill with their students. That resource kit is called Sketchnoting in the Classroom. I will link to it down below. So if you're a teacher, feel free to check that out. And if you're just getting into sketchnoting, check out my course, An Introduction to Visual Note-Taking. That will share with you how you might add these types of drawings to the notes that you take so that you can better remember and put into practice the ideas that you learn. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you find this tool useful, and I'll see you again in the next video. Until then.